Welcome everyone. Welcome again to the Global Sutta Series discussion organized by SKEGSS4-10 in collaboration with Brother Piya from the Minding Center, Singapore. For those who are new, this is our 10th class for 2021. Time really flies by very quickly. It's almost the end of May already and our 10th class. Thank you all for joining this lesson. Okay, we will start with the opening puja and meditation by Brother Piya. Brother Piya, over to you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinnadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccacara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, please get ready for the meditation. We'll do a short session of breath meditation to clear our minds of all thoughts, of all memories. Just be in the present, watching the breath. Just breathe normally in a relaxed way. Breathe in, breathe out. Just let the breath take care of itself. As the breath comes in, goes out. Stage 1, we count the breaths. In, out, 1. In, out, 2. In, out, 3. In, out, 4. In, out, 5. Smile each time. Then stop at 5 and start again, 1 to 5, 1 to 5. Or you can count up to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10, but not more than 10. No less than 5. Don't use any number smaller than 5, too small. If you make any mistakes, it's all right. Just start again from 1. If you have any difficulty starting, you can use a visualization. For example, you can picture a beautiful white lotus in the middle of the lake or in the water, opening up. This lotus is beautiful. It's opening up, very beautiful. So just feel the peacefulness of the lotus. Even when water drop on it, the water just run off. So if thoughts come to us, we just let go of those thoughts. Let them come, let them go. In, out, one, smile. In, out, two, smile, and so on. Count after the breath, at the end of the breath. So let the breath come first. If for any reason you do not like counting, or you feel that counting doesn't work for you, that's okay. Then you don't need to count, you go straight into the second stage. In the second stage, no need to count. You just watch the breath coming in, going out. When the breath has come in, simply note it as in. When the breath has gone out, note it as out. Smile each time. You can go on counting as long as you like, or anytime you feel ready, you can switch to the second stage. On your own, sit as long as you like to get focus. Whenever the mind wanders, bring it back. Every time you bring your mind back, the mind will go back to the breath. The more you do this, more mindful, more easily mindful you become. So keep on doing this. In, out, in, out. Now, some days you may notice there are lots of thoughts, very difficult to focus. It only shows that your meditation has begun and you are noticing your mind. Your mind is not focused. So just notice that mind and show it metta, loving kindness, accept it as it is, smile at it. And slowly push the thoughts away. And then you go into your meditation, either counting or in, out. As you get better with your meditation, you find it's easier, very natural to count, very natural to watch the in, out. At any time, let's say you're taking a long journey in a bus or airplane, or sitting somewhere quiet, you can do a one-step meditation, any step counting or in, out, just relax calm yourself. If you wake up middle of the night and you find you can't sleep, also just go into your meditation. Do a simple counting in, out until you fall asleep. So remember, stage 1, stage 2, try your best to keep focus, keep bringing the mind back to the breath. As you do this, the breath becomes more peaceful. You know this by noticing, by watching the spaces. When you notice, when you see the spaces getting longer, that means you're getting more peaceful. Once the space are more noticeable, a bit longer, breath slowing down, and you're ready for the third stage. Breathe in, space, smile at the space. And then out, smile again. In space, out space, in space, and so on. The spaces are not even. Some are long, some are short. A while, as you stay focused, you find your breath becoming very peaceful. In fact, your breath is so smooth and subtle, you might seem not to notice it even. That's a good sign. Just smile at it, don't do anything. This is the fourth stage. Silence, the silent stage. Don't do anything, don't say anything, just smile at the peace as long as you can. To make this peaceful state longer, just watch out if there is any thoughts coming. Smile at the thoughts, let them go. Or you can gently whisper in your mind, peaceful, peaceful. However, very often you may get distracted. It's okay, it's quite normal. Then go back to the in-out stage or counting stage. That also is part of the meditation. Whichever way you go, at the end of the meditation, you feel peaceful. At this point, please review your practice. Review your practice. Remember the peaceful moments, joyful moments. Remember them. It will help you in your future meditations or whenever you need inner peace. Review your practice. Now we'll do just sitting for a short while before we end. You can open your eyes, just sit quietly. We begin our meditation slowly, gently. We end it also slowly, gently. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good. So now we'll end the meditation. And we go on to the sutta study. Right, so you can see the sutta's title. This is from SD 5.8, Volume 5, Chapter 8, Cūḻa Māluṅkaputta Sutta. Cūḻa means, in this case, it means the lesser, shorter, smaller. Māluṅkya Putta. Putta means son, same as Malay Putra, son of Māluṅkya. Sometimes you see like in the Burmese text, the name is Māluṅkya, long ending. Māluṅkya actually is the name of the mother. Māluṅkaputta, son of Māluṅkya, like Sariputta. Sariputta, Sari is the mother's name. Yeah? So it's named after the monk, Māluṅkaputta Sutta, the shorter discourse to Māluṅkaputta. M63, like so it's an M Majjhima Sutta, so it's a very important sutta to do with practice. This sutta teaches us to prevent our minds from falling into a rut of views. Don't get caught up with views. No? Māluṅkaputta represents a typical intellectual person, if you like. Okay, people who like to ask a kind of very deep questions, learned questions, and get caught up with all kinds of speculations, ideas, arguments, and so on. So much so that in the case of Māluṅkaputta, it took him a long time, many years, decades in fact. He did not get any attainment. Only when he was old, there's a sutta called the Arahata Māluṅkaputta Sutta, where he goes to the Buddha to take leave, to ask the Buddha for teachings and then go for meditation. Then the Buddha sort of teased him. The Buddha said, wow, now only you come, what do you think the younger monks will think? It took so long to come. But Māluṅkaputta is quite serious. Says, now time has come. So he got the meditation practice from the Buddha and he went to his own practice and he became an arahat. So in his case, he stayed on and then he practiced. So here is where you see him as a young monk and asking all these typical questions that we today also, sometimes we are very interested in them. So let's look at the sutta now, page 61, the translation. Cūḻa Māluṅkaputta Sutta, the shorter discourse to Māluṅkaputta. M63. So either remember the number M63 or the name of the sutta. Thus have I heard at one time the Blessed One was staying in Anathapindika's park in Prince Jeta's Grove near Savatthi. So this is the main place where lots of suttas were given by the Buddha during the last half of the Buddha's life here. Yes. Now, while the Venerable Māluṅkaputta was alone in meditation, this thought arose in his mind. Now, this line is very important because it shows that those good monks, they go into some kind of personal retreat twice a day at least. Once in the early morning before sunrise, that means they get up early around 4 o'clock, and then they do meditation. And then when the sun rises, or just before the sun rises, they go out for their alms round. So before the sunrise, they're doing meditation, the retreat. So this is what's referring to. Or another session is the evening around dusk, when the sun is just setting, but you can still see the light. So the Buddha also would go into patisalana, that is a kind of personal retreat. So, and very often at the end of the meditation, thoughts will come, I should do this, I should do that, okay? So in this case, Māluṅkaputta started thinking about speculative views. So 2.2, this is what he thought. These speculative views have been left undetermined or unexplained by the Blessed One, set aside, rejected by him. Namely, okay, so these are 10 points that the Buddha doesn't deal with, doesn't answer, doesn't say anything about it. He set it aside. He doesn't want the monks to get involved with these 10 questions. So what are these 10 questions? 10 questions or 10 theses is, as they are said, 10 statements or 10 views, 10 ideas are very common. They kind of summarize all the speculations, philosophical speculations that we often have. The first 4 are about the world or the universe, if you like. No? So they are each actually a question. Is the world eternal, or is it not eternal? Okay, so 1 and 2 here talks about time. The world eternal, or is it eternal or not eternal? Okay, and then the 3 and 4 is about space or the structure of the universe. The world is finite. Has it got an end, or is it infinite? It's endless. So these 4, this kind of question, the Buddha said, don't try to think of them because they have no answers. So you find, yeah, the scientists do have some kind of answers now, but then in the future you find they'll come up with something else. So for the moment we think there are answers, but then like long ago, people who have no science, they think, oh, the world is the end of their horizon, and so on. So views change. So these first four questions are about the nature of the universe, if you like, cosmology. Then the 5 and 6 are about the soul, self or soul. The self is the same as the body. This is one view. The self and the body are the same. This is what normally the materialists will think. Body and self are the same. Body dies, self also dies. Another view, the self and the body are separate. So these are the 2 common views. Again, the Buddha said, don't think about it in this way. You will never get any answers. Very speculative. Why? In this case, why? Because the soul doesn't exist. Okay. The last 4 is the nature of someone who has died. Here is very interesting because the word Tathagata is used. So this way we have to be careful not to, be fixated with terms. Tathagata doesn't refer to the Buddha. It just simply means, yes, it means does come. It translates literally the word Tathagata, come like that, does come. It just refers to those beings who are born. So it just means a being. Okay? At the Tathagata, someone does come, exists after death. At the Tathagata does not exist after death. At the Tathagata both exist and does not exist after death. Then at the Tathagata neither exists nor not exist after death. Okay, these last 4, they are called the 4 truth alternatives. Truth alternatives, okay? This is found apparently only in Indian philosophy. They have 4 possible states of truth. Something is not, then both is or is not. The last one is neither is nor is not. In simple terms, it means this. For example, we say something is black, right? That's number 1. And number 2 is not black, okay? Some other color. And then number 3 is both black and not black. In other words, it makes like dots of black and white, okay, or gray if you like. And the last one is neither black nor white, it's something else, some other color. Okay? So this is the Indian way of logic. The Greeks only say there are 2 possible truths, but theirs is more, they're talking about realities, okay, on-off idea. Anyway, these are speculative views, which the Buddha says, don't think about all this. We won't know the answer, and it's not very helpful anyway. Anyway, the sutta will tell you in more details why the Buddha is silent on these 10 points. So now, here Malunkyaputta is thinking. When you read the sutta, always watch who is thinking now, or who is talking now, who is the person now, right? So in this case, it is Malunkyaputta is thinking. So he says, the Blessed One does not declare them to me. The Buddha has not mentioned any of this, no answer at all. I'm not pleased that the Blessed One does not declare them to me. I'm dissatisfied with that. So I shall go to the Blessed One and ask him the meaning of this matter. So imagine he gets up in the morning and says, wow, you know, why is it the Buddha doesn't talk about all these interesting questions? I'm not happy with this. I'm going to ask him, right? Then he thinks something else, 2.4. He thinks, if the Blessed One declares to me thus, then the 10 points again. The world is eternal, or the world is not eternal, the world is finite, or the world is infinite. The self is the same as the body, or the self and body are separate. The Tathagata exists after death, or he does not exist after death. He both exists and does not exist after death, or he neither exists nor not exist after death. Then I will live the holy life under the Blessed One. Right? So only if the Buddha answer to me about which idea is correct, or whatever explanation he gives. 2.5. If the Blessed One does not declare to me all these 10 points, and further down, then I will give up the training and return to lay life. He's quite desperate. He says, if the Buddha does not answer all these 10 questions to me, then I'm going to give up. I'm going to leave. And so this is his thought, all right? Now we have a new scene, all right? He goes to see the Buddha, section 3. Okay, further down, section 3. Then when it was evening, right? So it's evening now. The Venerable Māluṅkyaputta rose from meditation and approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he saluted him and sat down at one side. Right, so now imagine this dialogue or interview is in the evening, the cool evening. Seated at one side, the Venerable Māluṅkyaputta said this to the Blessed One. Here, Bhante, while I was alone in solitary retreat, the following thought arose in my mind. These speculative views have been left undetermined by the Blessed One, set aside, rejected by him, namely, and then he lists all the 10 points, right? So he's retelling everything. This part is repeated, okay? It's an introduction. So basically, Māluṅkyaputta is telling Buddha, you know, I've been thinking about these 10 points. So if the Blessed One does not answer, does not tell me these 10 points, and then 10 points are repeated again. If it tells me, first he says, if you explain to me all these 10 points, I will remain as a monk. 3.4. If the Blessed One does not declare to me, does not tell me about these 10 points, whether which one is true, which one is false, then I will give up the training and return to the lay life. Because this time, he gives the Buddha a sort of ultimatum. He gets even more serious. 3.5. He actually sort of like threatens the Buddha. You know, 3.5. He says, 1. If the Blessed One knows the world is eternal, then let the Blessed One declare to me the world is eternal. If the Blessed One knows the world is not eternal, then let the Blessed One declare to me the world is not eternal. So basically it's saying, if you know it so, you tell me. If you don't know, if the Blessed One knows not whether the world is eternal or the world is not eternal, then it is only right or honest for one who neither knows nor sees to say so. I do not know, I do not see. Right? So he goes on to each of these in the oral tradition. So he goes to one by one, each of the 10 points. He says, well, if you know this, you tell me so. If you don't know, okay, you tell me also, all right? So it's all right not to know. So it's kind of like, you know, trying to corner the Buddha. You know or you don't know, right? Okay, so he gives this long question, all right? And then the Buddha answers finally. Now the Buddha's reply, section 4. Now, Malunkyaputta. It's very carefully. It's very interesting how the Buddha replies. The Buddha asks him, this is like a Socratic interview. In other words, the Buddha asks questions, basically to bring out Malunkyapputta's own thinking. All right. So he says, now Malunkyaputta, have I ever said to you, come Malunkyaputta, lead the holy life under me, and I will declare to you, the world is eternal, or the world is not eternal. The world is finite, or the world is infinite. The self is the same as the body, or the self and the body are separate. The Tathagata exists after death. The Tathagata does not exist after death. The Tathagata both exists and does not exist after death. Or the Tathagata neither exists nor not exist after death. So the Buddha said, did I ever tell you that if you become a monk, when you first became a monk, did I ever tell you I'm going to explain these 10 points to you? He replies, no, Bhante. Right. So this is very clear, right? So here is where the Buddha is going to ask Malunkyaputta to answer, and he's going to base their conversation on the answer that Malunkyaputta gives. So in other words, it's going to be very clear. The Buddha is using Malunkyapputta's own thinking. So in that way, Malunkyaputta cannot argue anymore. He's saying exactly what Malunkyapputta's thinking is, what is the logic behind it, what's the right thing to do. So there is no contract, in other words, there's no agreement between the Buddha and Malunkyaputta, or the Buddha and anyone, that anyone who becomes a monk, the Buddha will explain any of these 10 points. There's no contract, no agreement. It's not the purpose of the holy life. So, second question, 4.2. The Buddha asks Malunkyaputta, have you ever said to me, because this time it turns the question around this time, have you ever said to me, I, Bhante, will lead the holy life under the Blessed One, and the Blessed One will declare to me, the world is eternal, the world is not eternal, or the world is finite, or the world is not finite, and so on, all the 10 points. He says, did you, when you became a monk, did you ask me all this? Did you become a monk with yourself, telling me that you will become a monk on the condition that the Buddha explains or talks about these 10 points, or any of these 10 points? Did you ever say that yourself when you first became a monk? Again, Malunkyaputta has to answer, no, Bhante. So this is quite clear. There was no such agreement. When Malunkyaputta became a monk, he wanted to just become a monk. This idea, all the speculations came later. All right. Now the Buddha is going to do something very interesting. Okay, he's building up this momentum. Right. So 4.3. It is agreed then, Malunkyaputta, that neither did I say, come Malunkyaputta, live the holy life under me, and I will declare to you. And the 10 points are listed again. 4.4. And that neither did you say, I, Bhante, will live the holy life under the Blessed One, and the Blessed One declared to me the 10 points. The world is eternal, the world is not eternal, and so on. So here, notice here, the Buddha wants to make sure that Malunkyaputta is following the discussion. So it is agreed then, right? Now what you have said, that when you become a monk, I did not tell you. I'm going to explain the 10 points. Nor did you yourself asked for the 10 points to be explained. We are very clear about this, right? In that case, says the Buddha, this is the clincher, we say, this is the conclusion, 4.5. That being the case, hollow man, this time the Buddha really scolds him, so to speak, scolds him, hollow man. In other words, he has no logic, okay? Hollow. Who is there to abandon what? Who is there to abandon what? So what is there to argue about? So the Buddha is saying, right? So why are you making such a big thing out of this this view, this speculation, okay? And now comes that famous teaching on the parable of the poisoned dart. We have often heard of this wonderful parable, right? Now, here is the parable, the locus classicus. Now, if people ask you, where did the Buddha talk about that? Parable of the poisoned dart, Cūḻa Māluṅkaputta Sutta, or M63. Remember, nowadays you got numbers. You know, I repeat the numbers very often to make sure that you know the number. I don't forget, you don't forget. In fact, if you look at the Sutta translation, I make it a point to first mention at least of the Sutta to put brackets what the Sutta number is. And then when I quote the Sutta, also I will put a number there. Because in the past, you find some books, they just say this Sutta so and so, but Sutta such and such, but there's no numbers. You don't know where is the Sutta, what is it really about. Then, you know, it's like you're not doing anything. Doesn't have at all. So these are all ways of making sure we learn clear and exact knowledge. And we know where this teaching comes from, and it is not some kind of speculation. And from there, we build up true wisdom, and then our practice becomes more confident, more proper, and then we build up the practice. So here, the Māluṅkaputta, in other words, has been disarmed, right? So basically, the Buddha is telling him, this demand you're making, this view you're having about wanting to know the 10 points, there is no agreement here at all. It's not what the, you know, becoming a monk is about. And then the Buddha now stress the idea why we should not be speculating in this kind of question which have no clear answers. That such question remain undetermined. That the Buddha says, if you go on talking about these 10 points, arguing about them, then you look at just below 429, bracket 429, that would still, this 10 question would still remain undetermined by a Tathagata. The Buddha will not answer this 10 question. And meanwhile, the person would die, right? So if you speculate about all these 10 points, you would die without any attainment. 5.2, here comes the famous parable. Suppose, Māluṅkaputta, a man were wounded by a dart, sala, not a dart or arrow. Sala actually is more translated as dart, actually. Thickly smeared with poison. And his friends and companions, his kinsmen and blood relatives, brings him a physician who is a dart remover to treat him. Right? So here we have this man who got hurt by a poisoned dart. So this dart probably is for hunting. Yeah? So accidentally he got shot by this poisoned dart. So it's quite serious in this case. So apparently in Buddha's time, you have this problem is quite common. So if you have a special kind of surgeon, a doctor who removes darts, so he knows how to like counter the poison and so on. Yeah? So a physician or doctor who is a dart remover to treat him. If he were to say, this victim who got shot by the poison dart, if he were to say, I will not let this dart be drawn out until I know whether the man who wounded me is a Kshatriya, a nobleman, a Brahmin, a priest, or a Vaishya, or a Shudra. Is a merchant or a worker. In our own time, we say, oh, I won't let this dart be pulled out until you tell me this person who shot me, is he an upper class, powerful guy, Or is he one of those educated people, professor something, or teaching somewhere? Or is he a businessman? Or is he a worker, middle class worker, right? Tell me what kind of person is it? Or if you were to say, I will not let the dart removing physician pull out this dart until I know the name and the clan of the man who wounded me. I want to know what his name is and which gotra, which clan, right? So Buddha's time, you have all those different clans. These clans are like surname, you know, like Tan, Lim, and so on. Or if you were to say, I will not let this dart be drawn out until I know whether the man who wounded me is tall or short or of medium height. Until I know whether the man who wounded me is dark, brown, or yellow skin. How does he look like? How's his complexion? Until I know whether the man who wounded me lives in such and such a village or town or city. All right. Now, what's interesting here, usually these three kinds of settlements are mentioned. Village are the original small settlements. And then you have the market towns. The second one is a town or market town, nigama. It's a gama, nigama. Okay. Market towns usually arise at crossroads. You know, crossroad travelers will stop a while to rest and decide which way to go. So these people will like, some people will go there, sell some refreshment, water, whatever. So slowly, as more travelers come, the business, those hawkers and so also become more, and then more and more people, and then people start settling there. And if if a lot of people come there, the place becomes a small village, and it becomes a town. So that's called a market town. Usually they arise around this crossroads. Or city, nagara. City are very big towns, right? So where does he come from? What kind of person is he? Or if you were to say, I will not let this dart be drawn out until I know whether the bow with which I am wounded is a long bow or a kodanda, a munda bow. Okay, some scholars have tried, some translators have tried to say, oh, you know, a long bow, crossbow, things like that. Now, we cannot simply find some convenient form of bow and then fit it into a translation. You can't, because they don't exist in India. There was no longbow, the kind of longbow that was used in Middle Ages, and the kind of crossbow used in France or England. There's no such bow. In fact, this kodanda is a very interesting, like a W-shaped bow you see in the Indian movies. So it's an Indian style of bow. So we can't really translate this. We got to use the original word, so to speak, and then explain it, right? So it's called a kodanda bow, a kodanda, or a munda bow, right? So this man say, okay, I'm not going to let you pull out this dart until I know whether the bowstring with which I'm wounded is fiber or reed or sinew or hemp or bark. You might say, isn't this sort of long-winded? Not so. You'd be surprised. Those sociologists and social historians in India, they love this kind of sutta. You know, this sutta goes back around 2,500 years or 2,000 years at least. And for them to know all these things, they say, look, this Pali text mentioned all these things. So all these things exist at that time. Yeah? And this is how the bowstrings were made. So it is very important historical fact for them that you find this is not mentioned in the other religious texts, but it's found in the suttas, right? So we might think, oh, why is all this repetition? But these are valuable information to the culture and history of India. Of course, the Buddha has a different idea. See, we'll come to that idea in a moment. So after talking about what kind of bowstring it is, then this person says, until I know whether the shaft, the wood of the arrow, the body of the arrow or the body of the dart with which I'm wounded is wild or cultivated. Okay, Is it from wild plant or is it cultivated plant? The piece of wood and the shaft. Until I know whether the feathers fitted to the shaft, that's at the end, you see the feathers, with which I'm wounded in, is from a vulture, or a heron, or a hawk, or a peacock, or a stork, right? So we know, so this is where they got the feathers from these birds. Until I know whether the sinew that binds the shaft, so you know this is the like string that ties the shaft so that it is strong, and the feathers are tight, very tightly there. Whether this sinew, the string used to tie up this shaft with which I'm wounded, is that of an ox or a buffalo or a deer or a monkey, right? So this sinew would be probably usually I think it's the like small intestines or whatever, or some of the muscle or whatever body part they used to tighten to bring into a string, right? So you have this long list of items of archery, which is of interest to the archer. If he were to say, I will not let this dart be drawn out until I know whether the dart that wounded me is an ordinary dart, or razor-tipped, or barb-tipped, or iron-tipped, or tipped with calf tooth, or with a tip shaped like oleander leaf. This last part is quite tricky, because the Pali word is oleander leaf. It can't be a oleander leaf. Oleander leaf is so soft. Here, the best thing I can imagine is it's more like the shape of the oleander leaf, which is quite sharp, sharp-tipped. So this dart, how is it shaped like? What does it look like? What's it made of, right? So all these details. Now, why did the Buddha mention all these details? Well, this is an example of arguments about the nature of the universe, the nature of the world, religious arguments about nature of life, of heavenly life, of God, and so on. Okay? They go into all these details, and they'll be arguing over these details. In fact, you find in religion, no one really agrees. That's why there's so many different religions, and within the same religion, there's so many other sects. Even the God idea, you find people say they believe in God, but they all believe differently in that God. They believe in the same God. They also swear against each other by the same God. They go to war by the same God. In Europe, there was this 30 Years' War. This was fought between the Christians. Christians were killing Christians by the millions over 30 years. One of the worst human conflicts in history. So can you imagine that? They can't agree in with their own religion, with their own idea of God even. Right? So the Buddha is saying, don't argue, don't discuss all this stuff. It doesn't help. So again, the Buddha includes a refrain here. The Buddha mentions the refrain, the reminder. All this Malunkyaputta would still not be known to that man, and meanwhile he would die. So too Malunkyaputta, if anyone were to say thus, I will not lead the holy life under the Blessed One until the Blessed One declares to me, the world is eternal, or the world is not eternal, the world is finite, or the world is infinite, the self is the same as the body, or the self and the body are separate, the Tathagata exists after death, or the Tathagata does not exist after death, the Tathagata both exists and does not exist after death, or a Tathagata neither exists nor not exists after death. That would still remain undetermined by the Tathagata. The Buddha will still not explain it. And meanwhile, that person would die. Yeah, would die. It's not a good thing. Would die means the person that's not attained any levels, and he just die like that in vain, right? So even as Buddhists, for us, we should at least aspire to stream winning. Otherwise, we will die in vain without any direction, and the chances of being reborn will be slim. We will go down into the subhuman state. Even if you keep the precepts, yeah, maybe you're reborn in the higher states in the heavens, but then, you know, after the karma is gone and there is the game called snakes and ladder, you go to the snake state, you go down to the suffering states again. So samsara is very tricky. The safest way is for us to attain stream winning. Once you attain at least stream winning, that means you start walking the path, keeping the precepts properly, you're at peace with yourself, you let go of self-view, then you will never fall below the subhuman. You never fall below the human state. You never be reborn the animal state, beta state, the hell state, and even asura states. You won't fall, right? And when you do go to heaven, you will live happily there, remain there for a long time. And if you fall from the heavens, you'll be reborn a happy human world again. Right? So that is at least your 10th stream winning. So this is what the Buddha has taught us and discovered. Right, so now the Buddha explained why he does not answer all these points. No? Section 6. Malunkyaputta, when there is the view, the world is eternal, there is no living of the holy life. Malunkyaputta, when there is the view, the world is not eternal, there is no living of the holy life. Now, these statements are very interesting. Just look at them. The Buddha says, if you have this view, the world is eternal. One view, just one view. Okay, my belief is the world is eternal. You won't be able to really practice because you're caught up with this view already, right? So now you see the Buddha going on a different angle, different gear, if you like. The danger of the 10 points. No? If you just take one stand and it's the world, in terms of time, it is eternal, and then you start arguing with those who don't agree with you. There's sure to be those who will disagree with you. Just you go on the internet, you find no matter how nice something you write, very wonderful, you thought is the best thought you have, someone will come up with something opposite, negative. So number 2, Malunkyaputta, when there is the view, the world is not eternal, there is no living of the holy life. So even if you say, okay, it's not forever, again, people argue with you. So you can't live the holy life. Malunkyaputta, whether or not there is the view the world is eternal or the view the world is not eternal, there is birth, there is decay, there is death. One thing is sure, right? You can believe any way you like about this, any of these 10 points, but one thing remains: birth, decay, death. These 3 things are connected, and there's always, this is the reality. This is what we know. This is called pragmatic. When you say Buddhism is pragmatic, this is the meaning. What do we know? What is useful to know? What can help us free ourselves from suffering? This knowledge that is useful, right? We have to start with the true facts, not the Google facts, the true facts, okay? True reality, that there is birth, decay, death. In one word, suffering. There are lamentation, sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, and despair. The removal of these I declare here and now. So there you are. This is what the Buddha says, this is what I teach. To remove this suffering. This is what I teach. Here and now. Notice, removal of suffering here and now, right? So most Buddhists postpone. We are postponers. Oh, never mind. Maybe next slide. We're not thinking about this. We think that, oh, you know, we're okay. We're enjoying good karma, you know. And we have to start thinking about impermanence. We have to start reflecting. And you got to aspire for the path, to reach the path before too late. The fact that we are born as human beings now is a really wonderful thing. So we use the human mind to direct it to the path so that the mind remains human and doesn't go down to the subhuman level. I wrote something interesting in the next sutta, and our next lesson in the Māluṅkya Sutta. I wrote something about human beings. You know, we go through this evolution, all right? Evolution, Buddhists accept theory of evolution. We go through evolution, right? So from animals, pretas, and all kinds of, I mean, all these lower subhuman realms, we evolve over millions and millions of years, and then we become human, right? What does it mean you evolve into a human being? It means you have a human body, but the mind is still not human yet. A baby that's born only has a human body. The mind is not human yet. Yes, there's a potential, but not yet. Because if a baby is stolen by a gorilla mother, it must be a mother, a female gorilla, then this mother has motherly instinct to take care of this baby. And this human baby will grow up to be a gorilla, behave like a gorilla. After 7 years, there's no way of changing the behavior of this human boy anymore. He will behave like a gorilla. And scientists have discovered this. They have captured this feral children, you know, trying to train them back into human, and they just won't behave like humans anymore. It's too late. They've been conditioned. In other words, we are born with human mothers, human parents rather. So we have a human body, but we are not human in mind yet. That is why that our parents have to raise us, our caregivers have to take care of us, our relatives have to take care of us, so that we are humanized. Our parents hug us, show us love. So if you have this kind of parental warmth and love, you become human. Then after that, we go to primary school, or before that you go to preschool. Then you socialize. You mix around with other people and so on. Then you become more and more human, so to speak. Or so we think. But when I look back, I realize I think not many of us actually become human even after that, you know, because you see how people behave, especially big crowds in America, in Europe. Imagine, you know, in India, this is the worst case, you know, religious festivals, huge crowds, like herds of cattle, you know, and then they get sick, all these germs spread, and then they get COVID. So they have not really become humans yet. They still go around big herds and they get hurt because of this. To be human means you dare to stand away from the crowd and not afraid to be by yourself and safe. And that way, you're also of benefit to others. Then you come back and you're of service, of help, of wisdom to the crowd. There's always this symbolic journey. This in the stories of the great heroes of various cultures, this person will have to go away from society for various reasons and discover the truth, and it comes back with the truth. We all like that. Every one of us. We grow up, then we have to leave home, get a job, grow up. You know, you leave home to grow up also. Otherwise, you always be a mother's baby, father's favorite, and so on. You go away, you get a job, you know the world, you mature as a social being, and then you come back and say, hey, mommy, daddy, I'm a man, I'm a woman. And so you mature, you become a really mature human being, right? And the question is, are you human yet or not? What does it mean to be human? We are kind to others, we have love, compassion, joy, and peace. When we can do that, then we have grown up, then we have matured. And you need Dharma training for that. You need Dharma training to become a human. And in meditation practice, we rise above the human state, especially in the 4 Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and peace. We rise into the divine state, heavenly state even, in this on earth here and now. And then later with this kind of training, we look at impermanence, we reflect on impermanence, we internalize impermanence, we understand impermanence, we realize impermanence, and then we go on to reach the path. and we're on the way to awakening. So that's the training that the Buddha wants to give us. Okay. All right, I'll stop here for a short while, then we continue to finish off this very interesting sutta. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Brother Piya. We'll take a 5 minutes break.
The Buddha says, Malunkyaputta, when there is the view, the world is finite. There is no living of the holy life. Malunkyaputta, when there is the view, the world is infinite. There is no living of the holy life. So if you have the view, you think of the universe in terms of space. The universe has an end or has no end. I mean, you hold on to the view, in a fixed way. You say this is the right one. This is the only view. You're going to have difficulty with the holy life. With your meditation, with your practice, we are attaining the path and so on. Okay. So the Buddha says whether or not these are true or these are false, there is birth, there is decay, there is death. That is the truth you must be aware of. And that there are sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, and despair. People are suffering. The removal of these I declare here and now. So here the Buddha already hints. It says, I don't talk about the 10 points. I don't declare the 10 points. I talk about and declare suffering and its ending. So here the Buddha already has given his answer indirectly. And then section 6.3, the Buddha goes on to the next two views. Whether the soul is the same as the body. So if you believe this kind of idea, there is no holy life for you. You will never really be able to progress in mental cultivation, inner peace. If you believe, or if you take a stand and say 7 bodies are separate, again, you get caught up with views. You will not be able to progress on the path of inner peace, meditation, and so on. So again, the Buddha repeats what I declare is suffering and ending of suffering. And then the Buddha goes on the same with the last 4 pieces, last 4 items, 6.4. Malunkyaputta, when there is the view of Tathagata, a being, exists after death, there's no living of the holy life. If you say there's no, the being does not exist after death, same thing. You hold on to this view, you will not be able to progress. Or you say both are true, or you say neither is true, you will not be able to progress on the inner cultivation. But these are views. What is real out there? There is suffering, right? Right, some of you may think, wow, all the Buddha talks about is suffering. All the Buddha talks about is birth, decay, death, sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, and despair. Yes, that's true, because that's what is real, is out there. But those are the clear facts, the palpable facts. What is meant here on a deeper level, more universal level, if you like, is that there is a sense of unsatisfactoriness. Right? In all our life as we grow up, we are always looking ahead for something new in life. That sense of something is missing in our life. There's something we want to achieve. That's a simple example, how we feel that there's something missing. Right? So when we say there is suffering, we mean there's something missing in our life. Something important is missing. Our health is missing. I mean, look at COVID now. How many things are missing from our life? We miss our freedom of moving around. A simple thing we take for granted in our daily life only 2 years ago. We can just get out of the house just as we are. I mean, properly clothed, or you go for exercise. You can't do that now. You got to mask up. You got to avoid being close to people and so on. So this is where things are so bad. You got to keep to the precepts, the rules. So those keep wearing a mask, keeping your distance. These are precepts that you need to keep in order to stay healthy. All right. So there is this situation. COVID is real. This is spreading around. Is real. So we have to watch out. We have to keep our distance, practice the right path. Now the Buddha goes on to his teaching, section 7. Therefore, Malunkyaputta, remember what I have left undetermined as undetermined, and remember what I have determined as determined. So don't misrepresent me, okay? What have I left undetermined? What is it I've not taught? The 10 points, right? So the Buddha repeats it in no uncertain terms. The world is eternal, Malunkyaputta, I have left undetermined. The world is not eternal, I have left undetermined. The world is finite, I have left undetermined. The world is infinite, I have left undetermined. The self or soul is the same as the body, I have left undetermined. The self and soul are separate, I have left undetermined. Tathagata, a being, exists after death, I have left undetermined. Tathagata, or being, does not exist after death, I have left undetermined. The Tathagata, or being, both exists and does not exist after death, I have left undetermined. And 10, a Tathagata neither exists nor does not exist after death, I have left undetermined. Why, Malunkyaputta, have I left them undetermined? Because it is unbeneficial. Or you can translate this word anatta sanghita to mean not connected with the goal, not connected with the attaining of awakening. It is not connected with the Dharma, not connected with the teaching that brings us inner peace. It does not belong with the fundamentals of the holy life. It has nothing to do with practicing precepts as a basis for meditation. It does not lead to revulsion. To notice this one is a set, it's called the dispassion, a revulsion or nibbida formula. No? It does not lead to revulsion, to dispassion, to cessation of suffering, to inner peace, to direct knowledge, to awakening, to nirvana. Right? So here, revulsion means that you say, oh, I don't have anything to do with this. This is dangerous. There are germs here. I'm keeping away from all this social distancing, wearing masks, and so on. So you know the situation is dangerous. It's like fire. You put your hand in, you get burned. You say, I'm not going to do that. That's the meaning of revulsion. You don't want to get tricked anymore. You know what it is. So that leads to dispassion. You're no more caught up with this. There's no more desire to do this thing. And then there is cessation, there's ending of suffering. And because of that, there's inner peace. Then you know from experience, this is what should be done. And there is awakening. There's this knowledge that leads to a clear mind and then nirvana. Okay? That is why I have left them undetermined. Okay? Now we talk about nirvana here. I was just thinking about it, this today. An easy way of understanding what nirvana is. Just an idea, so we don't think too much about it after that. Many years ago, there was this episode in the Star Trek series. I wrote about it somewhere in my reflections. I just can't remember the exact episode in the series. There's a story about this man in another part of the galaxy, another part of the universe. This man who lives on this planet, to cut a long story short, he cannot die. For some reason, he went through some kind of experience in some part of the universe, some wave, radio waves or whatever. So he cannot die. So the strange thing is that he's caught in a time loop. This is the time loop, what they call it, motif in stories. You find a number of movies, where the theme is this person or this group of people that get caught in a time loop. Things keep repeating themselves every day. So this man, he doesn't die. So, but he has to fight these aliens. They come to attack him, and then he has to fight back. And then they keep on fighting, and they all get shot anyway. So he got shot. So imagine he has to do the same thing over and over, over and over. There's no choice. He has to do this. So he meets the Star Trek crew. He says, I'm really tired about this. All this scenario has been going on hundreds of times, thousands maybe. I just want to die, he says. He just wants to die. Of course, this is a movie, you see. What does he mean when he says he wants to die? He wants to break the time loop. The time loop is samsara, you see. You are reborn and you keep doing the same thing. We don't notice that because we don't have a long memory. We can't remember what we did last life and so on. We only know the present life. Now we're listening to the Zoom talk, you know. And then we'll be reborn and we'll be repeating things, you know. The idea will be the same. Many lives, you know, over and over. We have gone through many lives. So in the case of this Satek story, it's kind of squeezed into a short episode. So you see it more graphically, more dramatically. In fact, there's another story where this God, this Deva in Tawatingsa, the wife dies in the morning and then goes down to earth, reborn as human being, and he lives there about 70 years, does good deeds, dedicate marriage, so he wants to come back to be reborn as the in the same heaven again. And then she dies, she's reborn back in the evening of the same day. And then the Deva husband sees her, this in Tawatingsa, so it's quite earthbound kind of heaven. So this Deva husband say, "Where have you been, my dear? You know, I miss you whole day." And she said, "Oh, you know, I was reborn on earth, and then now I'm back. After doing lots of good deeds, I'm back here." And then the husband also was curious, said, "Wow, you know, you've been away the whole morning, I mean, whole day, you know. But how long is it on earth?" It's always about, you know, 100 years, okay? It's about 100 years. It's so short. If you compare, I mean, you say, look, it's just 1 day only in Tawatingsa, you know, and it's 100 years on earth. That's not very long. And these people should be, you know, doing good deeds, practicing to get out of that kind of state. So there you are. So here you see the same theme like in the Star Trek story where this man get caught in a time loop. He's trying to get out of this cycle. See? So when you break the cycle, you no more go through this repetition of same actions you're going to do, shooting at aliens and getting killed again and so on, you know. So you want to get out of it. You want to break the loop. And the breaking of the loop is called nirvana. The normal repetition of the cycle of rebirth. So it's very easy to understand the idea of nirvana. This is not nirvana, but the idea of nirvana. Okay, so the Buddha teaches that you will break the loop, we get out of this loop. Okay. All right, so now we come to the conclusion. The determined, section 9. And what, Malunkyaputta, have I determined? The Four Noble Truths. This is suffering, Malunkyaputta, has been determined by me. Meaning the Buddha has discovered this truth and he teaches this truth and it works. This is the arising of suffering. This has been determined by me. This is the ending of suffering. This has been determined by me. This is the path leading to the ending of suffering. Has been determined by me. And why, Malunkyaputta, have I determined that? Meaning the Four Noble Truths. Because, Malunkyaputta, it is connected with the beneficial. It's opposite of the above. No? It's connected with what is beneficial, meaning it frees us from suffering. It belongs to the fundamental of the holy life. It helps us to keep the precepts, become a better person. It leads to revulsion, to dispassion, to cessation of suffering, to inner peace, to direct knowledge, to awakening, to nirvana. That is why they have been determined by me. Therefore, Malunkyaputta, remember what have been determined by me as determined, and what have been undetermined by me as undetermined. This is what the Blessed One said. Satisfied, the Venerable Malunkyaputta rejoiced in the Blessed One's word. But again, notice nothing happens to him. We did not attain any stage. But the good thing is he remains as a monk. Then later on, when he grows old, he will practice and become an arhat. And it's here, A1. Okay, now we go on to question time.
Thank you, Brother Piya, for explaining the sutta. Everyone, we can start the Q&A session now. Feel free to type in the chat box or raise your hand. Meantime, please kindly turn on your video for better interaction during the Q&A session. Sister Axie will take over the Q&A. Sister Axie.
Thank you, Sister Wendy.
I can close the screen for. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Piya, for the Sutta teaching. Let me start to read the question from the chat box. First question from Brother Tan Kim Si. Are we right to say that Buddha refused to answer those questions so that we will not waste time to talk and argue on wasteful matters, rather to spend our precious time to focus on the present with the right effort to walk the path to final liberation?
The simple answer is yes. See, the thing is, you notice, even the way scientists discover the nature of the universe, their views keep changing. At one time, Newton was the leading scientist. No? People thought, wow, okay, we found the answer. You know, this is the right answer. Everyone thought that. And then later, you get Einstein debunking Newton. And now we are reaching a point where people are going to, like, in a manner of speaking, debunk Einstein, come up with something, a better theory. So science like that, science keeps growing, and understanding becomes better. So what the Buddha is saying is, we're not scientists, so don't get caught up with that. If you get caught up with that, you'll never be a practitioner. So if you're a scientist and you know, okay, this is professional truth for now, this is what we know, and then you stick with that. You don't go beyond that. If you're really wise, you will not take a stand and start arguing and say everyone else is wrong. You know from nature of science even that this is just what we know right now. Okay, I mean, our telescopes are strong, powerful enough. Yes, we can see very far out into universe, but then there's so much more out there we do not see, we do not know. I mean, just look back our life. You know, there was a time in Malacca, 15th century, when the Portuguese came. Everyone thought, wow, these people look very odd, you know, they're very fair and bearded. So the closest that the locals know are the Bengalis, those Indians from Bengal. So they thought, oh, these are white Bengalis, you know. So that's a closest association the locals in Malacca had those days. So in other words, our world is still small, right? And if you're living in the jungle, it's worse. You think that the age of the jungle is the age of the world. And at that time, we thought that, oh, you know, the universe is quite small, right? Some people even thought that the Earth is the center of the universe. And those days, they thought there was like a dome over in the sky. And all this change, you see. Then we begin to say, oh, the universe is bigger than that, and so on. So all these views of the universe is changing and changing and changing all the time. So this is what the Buddha is trying to say. There's no end to this kind of thing because we can never know the final knowledge of this. Scientists are trying to find out, but they keep on moving the goalposts anyway, every generation. So the Buddha said, that's not our aim in becoming a Buddhist, you know. If you're a scientist, that's fine. If you're a psychologist, that's fine. But if you're a Buddhist, we are not dealing with all these scientific ideas, psychological ideas. If it's related to the Dharma, fine. If it's related to overcoming suffering, fine. That's the meaning, right? So short answer to Kim's question is yes. The idea is so that we don't waste time. We practice right to the point. You know, now we all are lucky we can come for classes like this. Suddenly we fall sick or something happens to our family or whatever. We find we can't be here. You know, there's so many people tonight who can't be here, but you are here. You are the lucky ones who can be here. And of course, it's very important for me to stay healthy, for me to stay clear-minded and sane, to be able to talk to you. See? So these are all wonderful conditions which we must cherish, in other words. We cannot take for granted. Okay, next question.
Thank you, Brother Piya. Next question from Brother Tan Kim Si again. Is it breaking the loop leading to no more birth, like breaking the chain leading to no more COVID-19?
I would say yes, technically yes, theoretically yes, because the samsara is a loop. The one thing I think perhaps Einstein got it right in a sense, like the way the Buddha explained the universe, that the universe is like a loop. It's when you go in a straight line, actually it's curved. So in the end, you end up coming back to the same place in the universe, so to speak. So that is samsara. So when we break this, no more suffering, no more rebirth, that is nirvana. That's as far as we can put into words the nature of nirvana. Okay. Okay, next question.
Okay, thank you, Brother Piya. The next one is not a question, it's an opinion from Mr. Brother LCO. This question of our origination of our existence may be time-wasting to indulge upon, but in Buddha first meditation, he is able to recall his thousands of past lives, thereby arriving at his enlightenment. I wonder, is there any practitioner in current time able to recall past life?
Oh, no,
I
no.
once
Okay. Yeah, go on, just finish. Yeah.
I once have this meditation and slept and dreamt that my past life was doing temple repairs, and now my lifelong career is doing home repairs. This
Okay.
is really mind-boggling.
Okay. All right. Advertising your work as usual. Fine. I think you got it wrong. You got it backwards. The Buddha did not find out about rebirth first. He became awakened first. Through his awakening, then he got all those various powers, abilities, because his mind was very clear. Then he, with that knowledge, he began to understand better how rebirth occurs and so on. Okay, so it's part of the 6 knowledges. So recollection of past life is one of them, recollection of his own life, recollection of other people's life. So this came after his awakening. All right, so it's kind of I don't know the timing, because definitely the knowledge is after the awakening. So it's not before the awakening. Okay. All right, so I think I don't want to go too much into that, but that should suffice. No? If still not satisfied, just ask again.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, I cannot find the hand. I couldn't raise my hand. This is Annie.
Annie, yes.
Brother Piya, just asked about the, because this sutta does mention about the existence of the Buddha after death. Okay. Where exactly is the Buddha now? Because I recently I have there were Dharma speakers I heard, and one said, oh, because the Buddha has already been enlightened, so he doesn't exist within the 31 planes of existence. Of course, that I can accept, because the highest 31 is where the Arahat is, and Buddha's actually higher than that, fully enlightened. But he said Buddha is not there, so he's not anywhere at all. He just doesn't exist anymore. Then another speaker said, in another Dharma talk, he said the Buddha exists everywhere, even in the human world. So I'm actually quite confused. I hope you can enlighten me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Very good question. The religion can be confusing, because many people out there who are talking about Buddhism, they did not do enough homework. They did not study the suttas carefully. You see, if you don't study the suttas carefully, then you are only quoting the views of other teachers who themselves have their own views. So that's why I have all kinds of ideas. You go to Japan, there's one group there which says, oh, our prophet is the true Buddha, because the old Buddha is from India, passed away already. This Japanese Buddha is the real one. So, and then the Koreans believe, oh, the next Buddha is coming to Korea, is it? I think it's something, the Malaysian Singaporeans might come up with something, I suppose, one day. So confusing, isn't it? And we know something is wrong here. This is not what the Buddha taught, is it? All right. Okay, let's see. What is it that we know from the suttas? The simple answer is the parable of the fire. See, in the Vacchagotta Sutta, this man, he's a bit like you and me. So this man, Vacchagotta, he wants to know, where is Nirvana? Where do we go? We enter Nirvana. So the Buddha said, okay, you see this fire in front of you, which is burning? And then the Buddha put out the fire. Then the Buddha asked, where's the fire gone? In the oral traditional style, has it gone north? Has it gone east, south, west, north, above, below? And then this man is intelligent enough. This man said, no, it's not gone anywhere. So yeah, so when the person is awakened, it's just like the fire. See, no more great head illusion, so no more rebirth. Body dies, the body goes back to the four elements, the consciousness dissipates. So you can't say he exists or does not exist. It's just like the fire, no more existing. So here again, we must be careful not to speculate, because we can say it exists, we say it don't exist, you start arguing. So that's why you got confused, because these are different opinions and both cannot be proven. And the Buddha say it doesn't matter whether he exists or not exists. These are opinions of the different later Buddhist philosophers and teachers and theologians. What is important, the Buddha said, do we know the Four Noble Truths? There is suffering, you got to overcome that, and then you deal with it, and then you have overcome suffering, then your mind is clear, then you say, okay, now I understand. It's just another way of putting it is like, let's say you're not a doctor, you say, wow, look at this COVID. This COVID is terrible, you know. Where does it come from? Nobody really knows. So there are theories. And then suddenly it goes away. You know, now this is second year, you know. I don't know how long it will take, but we know everything is impermanent. It will go away, and then people forget about it. Our children's children will forget about it. And then we say, where has it gone? You can't answer that question. Where has it gone, right? If it is easy to understand, you won't question where has the COVID gone after it disappears. Try to apply the understanding to where has the Buddha gone after he has awakened and then passes away. All the aggregates are gone, like the fire gone out. So some answers cannot be given from another person because our minds are different. All that I can give you is the way to think clearly. And then you apply yourself. This is called self-effort. This is called self-reliance. This is called accountability. You see? You know, in Buddhism, we don't answer a question like, can I eat meat? Can I not eat meat? Should I kill my enemy? Should I not kill my enemy? The precepts are there. Life is precious. We practice not to kill. See? If you ask me, can I kill my neighbor? It's so terrible. It's so this like that. And then I say, okay, in this case you can. Then he's going to quote me. You see? Then the karma is mine. You see? You see? So this is called, you are renegading on your karma, right? I'm not going to be stupid enough to answer that kind of question. Then I'm the one who's going to bear the karma. Is it? So I told him, please think for yourself, right? What did the Buddha teach you? What should you do? Think for yourself. That's the meaning of self-reliance. And there's some things not worth thinking, you know, right? What is my neighbor doing now? Why is he like that? There's 1,000 things we can think of which are not helpful at all. And people who like to think like that, we call them mad, you see? They get into trouble because you think so many things which are not helpful. So the Buddha said, be careful, this mind, don't use it in the wrong way. It's a very fine, wonderful instrument. You direct it correctly, it's going to help you. Direct it to inner peace, is what the Buddha says. Okay, that's why we don't have to worry about the 10 points. And that includes the Buddha, by the way. Okay, in a sense, you can include Buddha in the Tathagata, whether he exists, not exists after death. One last point is this. In fact, it's a post I made in the Facebook only yesterday. As someone asked me a question, say, oh, you know, some God believers say, oh, you know, Buddha is not human, so he cannot save us. I say, see that I gave quite a long answer. It's all on Facebook. You can look up there. My point is this. The fact that the Buddha died is very important to us. It's not, he didn't die in failure, right? I mean, you see Christ on the cross, you can say they're dying in failure. See? But the Buddha passed away peacefully with all these monks around him, devas also crying, you know. So the Buddha says everything is impermanent. All beings will die. So if the Buddha doesn't die, the Buddha is contradicting his own teaching. Then his teaching is false. The Buddha dies, giving us the final proof that what he says is true. The Buddha dies. But Buddhahood doesn't die. Buddhahood is different. The Buddhahood is our capability of understanding Dharma, of awakening. The teaching is given to us. That is the meaning of putting the teaching above the teacher. The teacher passes away, but the teaching, the method, is transmitted from mind to mind, and we learn, and then we free ourselves from suffering. So where does the idea, where did the Buddha go? Come in here. There's no place for this kind of idea. It is purely speculative. All those statements by those monks, Buddha died, Buddha exists, Buddha didn't exist, Buddha is everywhere. I mean, my goodness, if you say Buddha is everywhere, it's embarrassing, you know. I go to the toilet, he's there. Wow. No, I don't like that idea. It is terrible, isn't it? So we should be careful what we say about the Buddha, right? So some people, they just like big words, nice statements, you know, and then in the end, you get into very embarrassing situations, right? So we don't need that. What we need is, what is it right now we have to deal with? There is suffering. We have to deal with it. Suffering is not just physical pain. It is this ignorance. It is this not knowing something, you know, that we have to deal with. Right now, we have to deal with this overcoming COVID, for example. For us, for each of us, how to live a life so that we stay healthy, don't fall into any of this COVID situation. So these are the immediate emergencies that we have to deal with. So the Buddha is saying that what is it right now? You have to do that right thing first. Okay, right, next question, please.
Thank you, Brother Piya. Next question from Brother Ryan Go.
Yes.
The sutta says Buddha has not determined the 10 points. What it means is Buddha had actually determined what would and should not be determined.
No, he's not saying what do you call that, science is wrong, whatever. He's just saying if you want to really practice his teaching of keeping the precepts, of training the mind, of awakening, you don't need to know those things. Let the scientists do their job, okay? The scientists can do that, all right? Because the scientists have a way of thinking, all right? It's systematic, you see, but even the scientists know that somehow their knowledge also is not satisfactory. Each generation builds the foundation for the next, and so on. And scientific knowledge grows. So someone said, science is knowing more and more about less and less, or is it knowing less and less about more and more, something like that, you know? I mean, they think they know more, but then you find there's so much more to know, so there's no end to it. So that is speculative. But if our aim as Buddhists, we are not talking anything against science or psychology. We're saying, okay, as a Buddhist, you want to meditate, you do this. You let go of those thoughts. Don't worry about them. Focus your mind. What is it you want to do? This is the one. Do this. Okay? That's the meaning. What is it that we got to do if you want your mind to be calm and clear? Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brother Piya. The next question from Brother LCU. He stated that my understanding on Nirvana, where Buddha is now, and Nirvana are like extinction and never reborn, and by my interest in science, I suppose once we can be enlightened, we will pass into another dimension of existence. I think he's asking whether it's true or not.
That's one way of putting it. As I said, I wouldn't, you know, everyone is entitled to the view in this case. I'm not enlightened myself, so I can't make any statement and say this is the right one. I'm saying you're free to think, but make sure your thinking will not lead you away from inner peace and inner clarity. That's the main thing. Okay. All right, let's go on.
Thank you, Brother Piya. The next question from Go Hyun Kui.
Hyun Kui, yes.
In the spirit of this sutta, it points to the importance of focusing on the most beneficial aspects of the Dhamma that leads the way out of the samsara. This is important as our life is very short. So, for a lay person to practice beneficially, it would be helpful to have a few key Dhamma to remember. With your vast knowledge, what would be the 5 key Dhamma to remember for daily practice? I believe the first should be anicca. What do you think of the next 4 would be? 5 is easier to remember on a daily basis.
In fact, I think if you begin with anicca, you will know what to do next. It's different for different people. I wouldn't like to, narrow down, so these are the only practice. But the safest way, the easiest way I notice, the most sensible way from the suttas is to start with impermanence. Once you start with impermanence, you reflect everything is permanent, and then depends on your personality, your understanding, how much time you spend with the suttas, then you discover a new angle. You say, oh, because things are impermanent, so people don't last long, so I got to spend more time with them, if people whom I value, because anytime they might go away or pass away. So you find that your next step would be compassion, connecting with people with quality time, for example. Another person would think, oh, okay, wow, impermanent. So if that's the case, and people are suffering, so then they reflect on suffering. See? So that's their angle. And everyone would think, oh, okay, it's impermanent. So everything is impermanent and changing. Then there is no fixed view. See, there's no essence in things. So it thinks about non-self. So you have another angle. So you build up from there. Okay. And another one would think, okay, let me reflect on impermanence. Then the next step is I have to understand that I cannot rely on something outside of me. When you rely on anything outside of you to solve your problem, that's called superstition, right? Because you are not looking at where the problem started. That's inside you. You've got to look within yourself, all right? Use your mind, in other words. And then another person might think and say, now that I understand nature of impermanence, I don't have to do ritual action, do something over and over, like simply chanting and think that, wow, this chanting is going to be magical, it's going to do something good for me. Even when I say a few short words, I reflect on it, I understand, it helps me to be at peace, that's good. Of course, if I listen to the chanting of a full sutta, it's even better. So you find, depending on your personality, different aspects of Dhamma will open up. So remember, we are not like those dogmatic religions where you have a list of these are the things that you must go through, right? There are teachings, of course, but the Buddha is telling us this is how those great arahats experience things. But we don't really know what actually they experience, but their personal experience. What we know is the description in the sutta, and when you do practice, then you understand that aspect that is described in the sutta. So what we need now is to understand more and more through our experience what the Buddha and the Arahats are talking about in the suttas. Otherwise, there are stories to us which are interesting, and then slowly we get bits and pieces of the reality in life, and then we say, okay, to me, this is true, I can see it in my life. Then you say, okay, this I accept, this is part of my life. So this is what we need to do. We need to see more and more of reality out there, okay? And then your life becomes happier, more peaceful. Your vision is clearer of true reality, okay? All right, next question.
All right, thank you, Brother Piya. There's no more question at the moment in the chat box.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. Let me just say a few things. Okay. Today's sutta has been revised very nicely. I must thank Clementan. He's with us today. So I'm very happy that he looked very carefully into the Pali. He checked the Pali very carefully. He's such an amazingly patient person who looks at every line of the Pali. And that helps me a lot because this translation was done like 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. So that helped me to, upgrade it, make it better quality control, we call it. So the sutta work involves all of you, especially if you can help to proofread, and that helps a lot in quality control, in upgrading the way the sutta is presented. Of course, you don't have to know Pali. If you know Pali, that's very helpful. You can help to just check the English. Sometimes, sutta, instead of SUTTA, you got SUTTS, and then you just point it to me and that corrects it. So that helps. So simple things like that. I have people who are not intellectual at all, and then they're amazed that they can read the sutta and they understand. It's so simple, and they begin to feel like they're scholars. They're so happy. So you don't need to be a scholar. You don't need to go to university to check the sutta. If you can understand what I'm talking now and you read the suttas, you can help with the proofing, and the proofing also helps you to know the suttas better. So keep in mind all this idea of proofing the sutta. So just contact me or Ratna if you're interested to proofread. That helps. Okay, any questions?
Brother Piya, there's a question pop up in the chat box.
Sure.
From Brother LCO.
Right.
Anicca is the belief that nothing in the universe is fixed. Anicca means impermanence. This fundamental mark of existence reminds Buddhists that nothing is fixed or stable. Anatta is the belief that because everything in the universe changes, so too do human beings. I am confused by this statement. Please enlighten me.
Well, yeah, the statements you make are a little confusing. Anicca is impermanent. Let's begin there. That's the simplest. Everything around us is changing. When you look at the screen, everything is changing. Time has passed. We started 8 o'clock now. It's already 10 to 10. So that's one example of change. I see many of my old friends, you all were young those days. Now we all are old. I got white hair already, okay? My wife said I got more hair. I think it's because of medicine I'm taking, all these doctors giving me. But still, I'm growing old, okay? And you got to take care of your health, right? Because of impermanence. So impermanence is a lesson telling us that things are not always predictable. So you got to be very mindful of all these things. In practical terms, take care of your health. Meaning take care of your body. Your body is the first thing which is impermanent, right? Take care of it. It's not always healthy. You cannot say, you cannot take health as a given. You got to practice. I do my senior yoga every day as far as I can. Okay, occasionally I'll miss 1-2 days. So I do the stretching. I can't go out too much because of the COVID thing, So I do this simple yoga stretching. It helps. I had this pain in my neck, spondylosis. The pain is totally gone. See? All right, so that's my understanding of impermanence in practical terms. Now, when you look at impermanence, they say, okay, when things are impermanent, there is suffering, right? Your health, the food you take in, you give back, okay? So you got to take proper food. Again, has to do with health, right? So this suffering is something we cannot tolerate, or we find difficult tolerating. Dukkha, something difficult to tolerate. So the easy pain is physical pain. You can change your posture, the pain is gone. See? Then there is mental pain. When you lose something or lose someone, you get into difficulty with somebody. So you got to be aware of this. All right. For example, we have this, one thing, you live in Singapore, you live in flats. Unless you're a rich man, you got a bungalow, you can stay by yourself, very nice place. We live in flats, so if you got a crazy neighbor upstairs, we always fear what's called hell neighbors. we don't want those. But here, I have neighbors upstairs. The kid that hyperactive is always jumping up and down, and someone throwing furniture on the floor, and you can hear clunk, 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 you know. And you begin to get annoyed when you hear this noise just above this coming from the ceiling, don't you, right? But then I tell myself, let me show my metta. This is a time to practice metta, is it? Obviously, this boy is hyperactive, right? And this poor boy, he can't go out, you know, to go into the playground because of the COVID and so on. So he's just being active at home. And that's wonderful to know that. So when I hear the sound, in a sense, I feel happy. I feel, say, oh, that's good. He's safe up there, something like that. So you have a new look at the situation. Then it's not really suffering. Yes, as a part of your mind tell you, oh yeah, this guy very noisy, why can't he just be quiet, so that you live a very comfortable, predictable life. On the other hand, if you think on his side, you know, this poor boy is suffering, is he? So he wants to be active, he can't go out to play games, so he's doing it at home. So you learn something from suffering, right? People suffer, not just you. The most difficult is non-self. How do you reflect on non-self? It's a bit difficult, see? Because here, the meaning is that there is no fixed essence or identity in things. For example, you look at your photo 50 years ago, and then 20 years ago, and then now, you find it looks so different, you know? You see those movie actors, I'm sure you have your favorite movie actors. They're 30 years ago, they're so young, good looking. Now they're so ugly, you know. Some of them within a few years they can go very ugly, right? So they grow fat and so on, right? So you reflect on impermanence, and yet it's the same person, you see. The continuity is the same. So that is the reflection on non-self. That there is this identity in continuity. Now you must not mix the two. Continuity doesn't mean identity in the sense of essence. It simply means the same thoughts connect, cause and effect. It's just like, you know, you see that, I don't know what you call those metal balls, no? They hang like 7 of them, I think. They're all very close together, and then you take one and you take it up, they're on a string, and then you let go, and then one ball, and then one ball will jump on the other side. You take two balls will jump on the other side. This is an interesting way of showing karma. So this mental energy goes through life, right? And that's what gives us the idea that there is identity, but not essence. So there's no essence. We change, we become different, but our memory connects us with the past. Okay, that's as far as we can apply our understanding of the idea of self, the impermanent self, in other words. Okay, so these are a bit of reflections on the 3 characteristics, ilakana. Okay. Okay, next question.
Thank you, Brother Piya. That's the last question from the chat box for today. Any brother or sister would like to
we just
raise
have a
your
few more
hands and
minutes.
ask question?
Just a few more minutes, in fact. Okay, so any questions? Here's your chance. The next lesson, make sure you all don't miss it. It's called the Kalunka Sutta. I'll be talking about defense mechanisms. It's amazing how the Buddha could identify different ways people think about defending themselves when they do something wrong. In fact, I've written the paper on that Kalunka Sutta has gone up to 52 pages, I think. So it's got like triple the old size, you know. And I'm dedicating that to 20 years of my sutta work. I started in 2002. So next year, 2022 will be 20 years. Amazing, time flies. It's scary, you know. Imagine I'm 19 now. 20 years from now, I'm 17 now. 20 years from now, I'll be 90. So imagine 90 years old. I probably be forgetting things. I hope not. So that I can sit here and talk to you as I talk now. It would be wonderful if I can do that. But if I can last that long, so that's the whole thing, you know. Don't expect you're going to have a Zoom class every time. Yeah? So make sure you don't miss the future Zoom classes, all right? And don't take things for granted. Huh? Okay, any last questions? Couple of minutes left.
Quick one. Quick one.
And who is this?
I'm LC again. LC.
Okay, yes.
Just now, one of the sutta mentioned about Buddha's time, saying that when the person get arrow shot, and then he will question what type of arrow is that, and where it come from. But I mean, 2,500 years ago, people think that way. But I think today's world, nobody will think that way, right? Because when we are injured, we will find a solution to solve the problem first, rather than how we actually got injured.
Yeah, hopefully not. I hope one thing like that.
Yeah.
So that is a sutta teaching. So it's like literature. You see, the Buddha is presenting a scenario to teach us. All right. Now imagine, even if those stories are not true, the effect of the teaching is true. I mean, it's correct. See? I mean, sometimes you read some of this great literature. They are fiction, you see, but we like them because they reflect reality. See. But the wonderful thing is what the Buddha teaches us are based on human experience, which is also true. I don't think the Buddha and Māluṅkaputta actually talk exactly as the way as the sutta, right? Because it's repetitive, So they do talk in a certain way, but what the editors, what the monk reciters did is to put these teachings into that kind of format. It's called the oral tradition. Now, I've written another long paper on the oral tradition in the volume 58, I think, which talks about how all these teachings are preserved. So you got to imagine behind the sutta, the conversation is human, like you and I talk. But once you record it into a sutta, it has to be memorized. It has to be preserved over 2,500 years, mind you. How to do that? It's because of this style of repetition. It can be memorized orally, you see. That's how the teaching is preserved. And then the way the oral tradition is given to us, the repetition also makes good sense because the teachers, the monk reciters want us to remember the important points. So that's the oral tradition. Okay, time's up. That's very nice. We finished it on time. So let us close with a reflection. And then don't forget to keep a date for the next 2 Fridays from now. Okay. Now we have gathered together here. We have made a small act of renunciation. We have let go of our world for a while. We have let go of our pleasures, of other wonderful things we can do. But here we want to learn something about ourselves through understanding the Dharma. This is self-reliance. We started our gathering today by reciting the precepts, paying homage to the Buddha, reciting the precepts, practicing meditation, and then we listen to the Dharma. So all these are practice of the 3 trainings in a small way. And these are all acts of merit. By the good deeds we have done today, may we all be well and happy. May we be free from harm or danger in any way. May we grow wiser through understanding ourselves and rely on ourselves to free ourselves from views and suffering. And with that same wisdom, we show kindness to others also to help them to make their lives happier, especially those close to us, and then to others. So send your kind thoughts. This is a time, this wonderful moment, send your moments of kind thoughts to your loved one, people who are important to you. Wish them well and happy. Even a single thought can be very strong, very powerful. With that, now we close by showing our gratitude to the 3 jewels, our teacher, the teaching, and those great saints who have practiced and the Buddha's teaching and become exemplars for us. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagavan Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Bow down. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Bow down. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Bow down. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So good night, everybody. See you 2 weeks time. And